Hey there, folks. It's the E-Man here. I guess I wanted to talk about another bunch of collections I have. I think in other videos I've shown off my collection, but I guess I wanted to just show like the full-on collection. And some of these are repos, so I am going to tell you up front that a lot of them are repos. Yeah, yeah. Well, you can burn Sega CD games, but it's a little bit frustrating trying to do it. So I said I usually go to Etsy and get these. I know I've talked about you know, my favorite Sega Saturn game, Panzer Dragoon Saga, and the backup unlocker and all that. You know, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, and I will do a simple update too. Yeah, I heard that my analog 3D, I guess, is ready to ship. It's sitting in California. I guess it's getting ready to come on its way here, which will be great. But Sega CD. Yes, and as I said, I do have a Mega SG, and I have a Sega CD, so I can probably capture some footage later. But let's just try to see this video. I feel like every once in a while I'll just do a gameplay video, and I'm not really going to freak out if I don't get tons of views because I like to do other videos too. Okay, so the first game is Lunar Eternal Blue, known to us as Lunar 2 if you have the PlayStation version. Yeah, the Sega CD version has a few differences. Yeah, like it's kind of weird. When we think, how we have all these remasters and stuff nowadays, it's kind of what this was. Like when it went from Sega CD to PlayStation, it's like there was a change in a lot of the graphics and the way a lot of stuff looks in the game and stuff. Yeah, of course, it was on the Sega CD, so we got to have cool animated cutscenes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is almost an anime pretty much as a video game, which was cool. Yeah, working designs, everything. Game arts and working designs. It translated the whole thing. Yeah. I guess they called it Lunar 2 here in the States because it would be kind of confusing. Some of these Japanese games have confusing names that make you think it's the same game or something, so I guess that's why this is called Lunar 2 here in the States. Yeah, this is a repo. It didn't have an instruction booklet though. It's nice to get the ones with instruction booklet, and I think I do have some with instruction booklets. Yep. Sometimes I've noticed some of these repos. I don't know if it's not the fault of the seller, but I've noticed that some of these do run weird. But I guess I'll talk about that later on because some of these burn ones this won't work. I don't know. Well, they won't work like they may work on a Sega CD emulator, but not really work on the actual Sega CD. The Sega CD is kind of slow with loading games. So a lot of times I'm like, oh, I think it's broken, but then it's like loading. Yeah, yeah I have a Model 2 Sega CD. I had something fall on it, but I haven't really tried it yet. I'm sure it works. Yeah, and with that Sega CD, you had to hook your Genesis up to it. Your Genesis would have like a port that you could take a plastic piece off, and then you could stick it on there. The Mega SG does do that. It does have a piece it can take off. All right. So, oh yes, we got Mad Dog McGree. Yeah, I remember playing this in the arcades back in the '90s. It's kind of a cool game. One of the issues I will notice about playing this on the Sega CD, especially now, is the video is very grainy. It's very hard to see what you're shooting at. I've played the HD version of this like in an emulator, and even then it's hard to see some of the people sometimes. But yeah, it's very pixelated because of what the Sega CD was. I did all kinds of settings to try to make it look as good as possible, and I just couldn't get it looking very good. It's just the way the Sega CD is. I mean, well, some of these games, I even tried this on my CRT television, and it's still, with scan lines and everything, it still didn't look good. But yeah, I think, yeah. Can you use playable with the control pad, the Mega Mouse, Minister, or most Sega compatible video guns? Wow, basically every gun that the Genesis ever had. It was very weird that a lot of peripherals for the Genesis then worked on the Sega CD. I do think that Sega would have done a lot better if the Sega CD had been its own console rather than having to life support off of the thing. A lot of them were FMV stuff. I also have the Wii game that has like most. I think it has all the Mad Dog McGree games on it, and it's like full, full, the FMV stuff, but it's like not grainy, not anything. It looks exactly like the arcade. But yeah, I kind of, it's kind of the Wild West, and it's like it's cool because like there's I don't know if you guys ever played this, but there's a lot of like real, real kind of like stunt men, and there's like this kind of Wild West town set up, and then like you shoot them, and they like do flips, and yeah, it's kind of like a reenact. I know that there used to be a lot of theme parks like that would reenact Wild West stuff. So yeah, I mean, I will admit it was a lot of work for someone to want to put a game like this together. Real people to talk to you and interact with. It's kind of interesting. Okay, and we have Sega CD, Rise of the Dragon. Oh yeah, of course this is official. Yeah, these are the original the kind of boxes they would come in. These huge, giant boxes. I think the Saturn actually used these same cases. Yeah, you can buy a bunch of these cases online so you can replace them. Yeah, I mean they get cracked. Well, let me show you the biggest issue with Sega CD. These big jewel cases. There'd have to be a piece of styrofoam in there. And you might say, why is there a piece of styrofoam in there? Well, that's to hold the instruction booklet up. Because the instruction booklet will slowly sink into it. So it's partially just to keep the instruction booklet from smushing, from it like starting to settle out or something. Yeah, so it would keep the instruction booklet from settling out. I guess it was an attempt to do that, but this is a complete Way of the Dragon. Now, I haven't actually played this, but yeah, I'm assuming this is kind of like, yeah, this might be kind of like Snatcher or something in the sense that it's like kind of a narrative kind of a driven thing. I haven't actually played this. I probably should try to play it. But yeah, or like that Blade Runner game they had or something. But, okay. All right. All right. Boom shakalaka laka. You remember that from NBA Jam? Is that when you hit it? I'm not usually into sports games, but I remember the boom shakalaka of NBA Jam. Yeah, it was this the new player roster midway Sega CD. Yeah, as you can tell, it has a lot of the old NBA stars. Yeah, NBA Jam was more of an over the top kind of silly kind of basketball game. It was never really meant to be taken seriously. I remember, yeah, and this is complete too. I remember they had, yeah, there was some of these NBA basketball games you could unlock Bill Clinton to play as Bill Clinton or something. I'm like, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but okay. Whatever, NBA Jam. All right, now we're going to get to one of the most sought after, most expensive, most expensive game, for the Sega CD. That's very rare to get. Is Snatcher, because I think they made very limited amounts of these, and this uses the Justifier. Like I said, sometimes it feels very much like a point and click adventure game, which that isn't bad, but a lot of times you have to whip out your gun and shoot. So it's kind of cool. Shooting with the controller is not really that difficult, but yeah, Snatcher is definitely heavily influenced by Blade Runner. I mean, it's not even funny, but that's not a bad thing. And of course, I believe the guy that did a lot of work on the Metal Gear Solid games, he made this game. A very interesting individual. So it was a very interesting type of game. I don't know if saying calling a point and click is perfectly accurate, but a lot of times that's the way it is. Like you go somewhere, you click on something, you got to talk to the person. Sometimes you have to go through the thing multiple times, investigate multiple different things. Sometimes I investigated the same spot 3 times before it actually told me what I was supposed to do. Yeah, a lot of times you're just like, almost kind of like a detective, search for clues, find out what's going on because there's these crazy robots that look like people and you have to hunt them down because they killed one of your fellow hunters or whatever. Oh yes, recently I was able to get a repo version that had the instruction booklet, so complete. Yeah. I've been wanting to try to get my hands on a Justifier, but the light guns are very hard to find. And I remember I got ripped off because, yeah, I think I bought Lethal Enforcers. It was supposed to come with the Justifier, and the Justifier didn't come with it. Yeah, and I've had that issue before where I tried to get Time Crisis 3, and I had to pay $80 for it. I'm like, what? Because I thought I was going to get the gun with it, and then the gun never showed up. I was like, then some of these light guns may show up and they may be broken or they may be missing a piece. Like I did finally get a little light gun for the PlayStation 3, but I had to go buy another connector in order to hook it up. Well, and plus I need to have a CRT television to do that with. Yeah, 2047. Yeah, he plays a guy who's forgotten he doesn't remember who he is. Him and his wife had amnesia and stuff, and I guess he wants to become, one of the hunters for the Snatchers so that he can get out there and figure out who he is and whatnot. And he has this cute little robot companion, and we have a car to drive in, and so it's like you can go to the station, look at computer terminals, get information, and then go somewhere. This is definitely a game that helps if you write stuff down because there were so many times I had to go all the way back to, I go all the way back to the HQ to look at to look at, the computer system and like look at all this information, and then just to figure out something in the game. Like I remember the daughter of the guy that gets killed, you have to go to her house and she asks you certain questions and you have to figure out where you get the answers to those questions before she'll let you into her house or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting game. As I said, it's kind of feels like very much like a point and click game, but that's not a bad thing. But I think it's just the voice acting is good, and it's just it's pretty cool. Well, Konami at its best, or I should say, the Kiji, what is it, Kiji Inafune? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I should say him because he's the one that did those games. Yeah, Konami really was stupid to piss him off. It really was. I think Konami is too big for its britches. Wants to get rid of people because they refuse to do what they want them to do. Now, of course, yeah we have Soul Feast for the Sega CD. Yeah, it's a shoot 'em up, basically going against an evil supercomputer and whatnot. Yeah, I know the giant bug on the front makes things fighting bugs, but that's one of the bosses. Yeah, and it has some anime cutscenes in it too, flying through the ship and stuff. And, well, the story there's the Sega Genesis version of this game like has a completely different story. This shooter is also hard as hell, which is why I don't see a lot of people playing it. I have discovered it's actually easy. Well, not easy, but a lot of times I've discovered that you have like I think it was in this version that I found that you have like you actually have infinite continues as long as you don't stop playing. So it does save what level you're on. But once you turn off the power, though, you have to go all the way back to the beginning if you try to play it again. A rather it's a rather brutally hard game. Some of the later stages just get insane. Like, there's all these enemies coming at you and everything. Yeah, see, I see. This is an instance where I had the repo disc, and for some odd reason, it just wouldn't work. I don't know if they burned the disc wrong or what. So this is actually the official Soul Feast game, and I think because it's not a very sought after game because of its difficulty, maybe off putting to some, but it's still cool to have a very good game with Sega CD quality sound and everything. I think it's probably the more better version, I think, than the Genesis. All right. FMV game that's you taking the role of a football player. Okay, yeah, sorry, the front artwork got destroyed. But quarterback attack with Mike Ditka. Let me see if I'm reading that right. Or just quarterback attack. Excuse me, there's some dust in this thing. I haven't played it. Yeah, Ditka. It's kind of cool because you look through you look through the helmet like you're right in the game, like you're playing like you're a football player because you see the you see the frame of the helmet in front of you as you're playing it. So it's like, and a lot of times you lose. Mike Ditka comes out and he rats on you. An interesting take on the FMV thing. I think it's an important part of video game history to remember that there's a lot of these games. They were kind of silly, like Night Trap or whatever. They were kind of dull, or they were kind of violent, or they were just very strange. But I think they're still worth playing. I think, yeah, I don't know if this has been released or anything. I know you can play a Double Switch and Night Trap. We have modern releases for those. Back attack. Yeah, not really a football player, but it is interesting to play this. It's kind of a silly novelty to go look at. Well, I hope that I'll do a video later of capturing these games, capturing these and actually showing what they look like. I never had a Sega CD growing up because they were very expensive. It was like $150. That was pretty expensive back then. And I was still a kid. I was still school. Another interesting FMV game. We have Fahrenheit. Yeah, this is like the 32X CD. Yeah, this came with 2 discs because there's I think there's special attachments where you could have the 32X and the Sega CD in order to play them. It seems kind of silly. Yeah, the disc one is the key and everything. Essentially, it's a firefighter game. I think you go into houses and you gotta find people in the fire. It's it. Yeah, almost like the backdraft kind of thing. If you guys ever seen the movie Backdraft, the fires and whatnot. Yeah, I think you could go find them or and help fight the fires. I haven't played this yet. So I know a lot of times the FMV stuff is very grainy, So I wonder how difficult it might be to play it. But it's kind of cool to play a game that they really try to be interactive, make you feel like you're in the game. So that would be a cool premise. Yeah, I think the premise of FMV games were kind of cool, but well, if the acting is really terrible on them, when it looks like you just had an intern at your company just kind of come in and do it, and they have no acting skills at all. But sometimes that can be funny with some games. But of course, we've got a Sega CD version of Echo the Dolphin. Now, a lot of these Sega CD versions of Genesis games, they have better sound, but they didn't really do much with them, which seems like it was kind of wasted potential with the Sega CD. I mean, this is a great game. This game is very tough. You think, oh, it's a little kiddie game. No, this is not a little kiddie game. This is a tough game. I don't know if you guys have seen the AVGN video of Echo the Dolphin. It's a very challenge. There's parts of the game that are just incredibly challenging. But I love the look of this. The sound. Sometimes this game can even be considered a horror game. And the basic thing, that evil alien that's like eating things. It's like, yeah, it's pretty freaky. Yeah, so this uses Q sound with stereo hookup. You'll be surrounded in waves of 3D sound. I'm like, huh. Mm. Yeah, I think it was kind of cool because you take the role of, well, Echo the Dolphin. He's got stars on his head. I think it was what it shows on the thing. Yeah, you take control of him, and it's kind of a weird game because I was interested in how. Well, I always had an interest in how animals are able to function or do things because I know that dolphins use sonar and they have to breathe air like we do, and this game has a lot of that. Like, what does Echo? Like, you're under the water too long, you're going to drown, so you have to find pockets of air and stuff. And their sonar thing is cool because you can send it out, it comes back, and it shows you a map. It's kind of an interesting concept. Yeah, basically his family disappears, and then he has to go find out what happened to them. Yeah, and of course we've got the Tides of Time, and yeah, then there was also there was a Dreamcast game of Echo the Dolphin, a 3D game. I think I thought I had the ROM of it, the ISO to play it. Of course, this is complete, and I was able to get it for not a whole bunch of money, really. Let's see. Yep, it is complete. Yeah, complete with a styrofoam and everything. Yeah, this was a pretty good steal. It's pretty good quality thing. It almost looks like it's brand new. Really. Yeah. Welcome to the next level. Yeah. Well, essentially, if you've played the Genesis version of this, but I think the Sega CD version has better sound. I think it has better sound. Maybe it's easier to save. So I don't know if the Genesis version allowed you to save. But really not any different. Yeah, there's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of Sega CD games that are almost ports of Genesis games. Like they didn't really do anything to really change them. It had better sound because it has CD quality sound, but usually they didn't really do much. Kind of wasted potential. Kind of wasted potential. I've played the game Cliffhanger. Yeah, the Sega CD version actually has clips from the movie Cliffhanger, and I was like, wow, it has like completely different levels than the Genesis version. So at least some of the games they try to do different things, but in the end they still say, wow. Yes, Sega the Genesis was a great console. I loved that console, and I think that Sega did what a lot of companies do when they've done really well is they take risks, and well, as a company, you got to take risks, and well, and Sega took some risks, and they didn't pay off. I mean, it's like there are some good, great Sega CD games, and there's a few great 32X games, but the Sega CD and the 32X was just kind of ridiculous because Sega put both of these out almost at the same time, so they were competing with each other. Right? Yeah, the Sega CD should have been its own console. Yeah, it should have been its own console. It should not have been connected to the Genesis or anything, or try to compete with itself. When you have to compete with yourself, you're just not going to win. I would suggest mostly to play 32X games through emulation. Well, I mean, I've seen the AVGN videos. Him and Mike, James and Mike had a lot of problems trying to get Knuckles Chaotix to work. Well, the 32X was not very high quality. It was not a very high quality thing. And some people seem to have a theory that the Sega 32X, like playing it on your console, your Genesis, can supposedly hurt the cartridge slot on it. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, like the 32X and the Sega CD, like they latched on to the Genesis like a parasite, and they had to like function. Yeah, it's just always the weird thing. Like the Sega CD won't work on its own. Maybe someone hasn't made a mod yet, so the Sega CD can like run on its own. I have a Model 2 Genesis. So, hey, you know what? Let me go get it. Let's see. Might be a little bit. Oh. Yeah, man. My jammy pants there. Hmm. Yeah, so you're gonna have to have like all these different power adapters and different plugins and whatnot. Yeah, I mean there has to be one for the Genesis, one for the Sega CD. Yeah, well, let me show you. Yep, there's a good old hook on. Yep, and it's well, it allowed you to do audio. Yeah, because the idea of the was you could plug this into like a stereo for audio out. What's that? Oh, the mixing thing. I know there was ever mixing software or something. But yeah. So basically, the says you had to come with a base, so you could put your Genesis in here because you don't want the Genesis to move too much. Because if it disconnects, it can screw it up. But there's Snatcher. That's the other version. I think it runs weird or something. Yeah, pretty much a disc-based console. The problem is that it's an add-on. I know there was like the Atari Jaguar had an add-on. Yeah, so there was a lot of consoles trying to have add-ons, but I do feel like they should have just Sega should have just done the Sega CD and not done the 32X, and they should have just went right to the Saturn after the Sega CD. But it is what it is. It's an interesting part of Sega's history. Now the Model 2s are usually a lot more. The Model 2s are a lot more reliable than other ones. I know there is this special CDX thing that can play Genesis and Sega CD games, like on the same thing. But I heard that a lot of the parts fail. Well, these old disk drives, they spin. There's motors in them. I mean, there's parts that can wear out. That's why usually like cartridge consoles are usually they hold up a lot better because they don't have a lot of movable parts that are going to wear down. Usually there'll be a light flashing, loading, and So loading screen and everything. Yeah, this base actually gets kind of heavy after a while to hold it, but it's meant to keep the Genesis and the Sega CD from separating. Well, let's see. I'll show you. See. Oh. Oh, the Sega CD doesn't come. Oh, the Sega CD is built into the base. I forgot about that. Okay, because I was about to say, oh, I can't pull it out, but yeah. This is essentially like what you get when you got the Sega CD. Um, yeah, I think the thing is when I got the Sega CD, a lot of Sega CDs that you get if you buy one, they usually are going to come with a Genesis. Because usually someone just have 50 Genesis laying around. Sega Genesis emulation is just pretty much perfect. So so it's kind of the die hard kind of person. So here is the chip. Here's the part that then plugs into the Sega CD so that it can work. Well, and imagine if you have the 32X, you have even more stuff you got to plug in. And the 32X has a special cable that goes between it. Yeah. Well, then Genesis, it's a little house. Yep. Snaps right in, and then you're off to the races with the Sega CD. I mean, I forgot how heavy it is. Yeah, it's a little dusty. I haven't really played it much. Well, it's kind of a little bit. I have way too many consoles. I probably got to do a video talking about all the consoles I have. I have a lot of consoles, so it'd be hard to figure out places to put them and to play them and stuff. But yeah, well, I guess that's enough about the Sega CD. I guess I could be talking about it all night, but yeah. Okay, well, that's been a look at my Sega CD collection and the a little bit about the Sega CD console itself. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was a little pricey when I had to get it, but I think I had to pay like I think around $200. I think for it. Yeah, because it came with the base. And I don't know if it came with another Genesis. I'm wondering. I don't think so. Another Genesis. Of course, yeah. As I have said earlier, I have the analog of the Mega SG, and that can plug right into the Sega CD. So then you can actually get because I figured out that the video, the Sega CD comes out of the way the Genesis is hooked up. Yeah, the Sega CD has to use some of the some of the electronics inside the Genesis in order to run it, which may explain why a lot of Sega CD games are almost carbon copies of the Genesis games because it's like they're trying to use older hardware to run something newer. And of course, the loading times are rather slow. It's an older console, so wait to waiting for it and stuff. It has its own cool opening screen and yeah, and everything. I think you can play audio CDs through this. I think because I think Sega used CDRs like throughout their history. Even Dreamcast games were done on CDRs. So, yeah. Well, and there's no like, you know, I think there is region locking, but there is no really security protection on the Sega CD. So you can burn Sega CD games, and you don't have to worry about them having any security issue, which I think is why a lot of these older consoles are going up in price, especially the. I was able to get a Saturn for $80. Now they're like $200. Yeah, I see like people talk about they got 360 for $30. I was like, what? There's like Sega CDs are now like hundreds of dollars. Yeah, Xbox 360s are now like Yeah, they go up in price because people want to collect. Yeah, and I just, yeah, I don't know. I found that out about the Sega CD. That was kind of why I wanted to get one, but then it was like, it's a little convoluted because I guess you got to go through a special process to. I think there's a little bit of a different way with Sega CD games as there is with Dreamcast games, and there is also the fear that a lot of these repo games, those discs may hurt the laser because it might have a harder time reading the disc, and that can cause the motor to spin a lot. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't really put on the any security on the Sega CD. Of course, this was back in the day, like when consoles didn't hook onto the internet, so maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, nowadays everyone kind of knows how to burn these games and get around security. Oh yeah, because a lot of Dreamcasts, like Sega Dreamcasts, if they're old enough, they'll work. Yeah, the newest Dreamcast actually had like the security protection on them, but I think the older ones did not. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've seen so many YouTubers talking about the fall of Sega and all of their things. Sega still exists. Yeah, they were gonna do a lot, bring back a lot of friends. They brought back Shinobi. I think we still have not gotten a new. It'd be cool to get a new Golden Axe game. Most definitely. Okay. Sorry. Rambling too much here. All right. Well, if you guys decide to do a long video, because I do those short videos and it doesn't really get to the point. But, yep. Please like and subscribe as always, and click on the bell to get notifications when I'm doing videos. Yeah, feel free to leave any comments or opinions about what you think about the Sega CD and what you guys think about the Sega CD or the games and whatever. And yeah, and I do appreciate the positive feedback on my other videos. It's really great. I feel like I do a lot better with these talking videos than I do gameplay. Well, I mean, it's just some people are best doing talking videos than doing actual gameplay videos. Yeah, I'll make a comment on my other video, my 360 video of the fall of Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Yeah, I was able to get like the capture card working and some new Elgato software, so got that going. Well, I'm not really gonna worry. I don't get a lot of views on my gameplay videos because, like, whatever. I'm still gonna do other videos too. Yep. Oh yeah, and we're getting closer and closer to Thanksgiving, yeah, too. And plus, at my job, I got a holiday bonus. It was like, wow, pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. But of course, Christmas time is around the corner, so sort of figuring out what's for Christmas. Yeah, it's like goodness. Yeah, Christmas is the one day of the year that I feel like we prepare for it for months, and it's really just one morning, and then boom, that's it. Well, I'm not gonna. Let's not talk about Christmas yet. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. After Thanksgiving, okay, we'll start doing Christmas. But I didn't even want to think about Christmas yet till doing this. Anyway, I will see you guys next video then. Catch you guys later. Bye.